Welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Today I'm going to start out talking about our Manda Tiller here, and then we're going to talk about progress on some of our projects. So anyway, we finally got in a few days of spring weather, although right now a storm's coming in to get us. A nice big rainstorm. It's going to rain for another week. But we got our garden beds tilled, we got some plants in today. But I received this as a gift, basically. I went to Craigslist and somebody had a bunch of stuff listed. There's an older video on it, but we got it running and really didn't have very much time on it. But older ones like this had a problem, and it was the air cleaner assembly. When I got it, there was no air filter in it, and others I'd worked on too had taken them out also. The original air filter is a gauze material. These little engines are pretty high performance, so they have advanced porting, and so what happens is the piston, before it closes the intake port, there's pressure in the crank and it spits back a little bit of fuel air mixture. And so you can see on the top here, and here, there's some two-stroke drool on there, and of course dirt accumulates on it. So what that's caused from, like I say, is the port timing. And there's a lot of these that just got put away or got rid of because they wouldn't run right because of the bad air filters they had stock. So I made a foam one, and the key to making these work is you got to have open pore foam. If you have closed pore, that mix will get in here and plug it up. And so if you look real close here, you can see on the bottom of this here, the mixture had been blowing back and it drips down and gets on the bottom of the filter here. It drips out on the plate here. So it's just basically dirt and a little bit of two-stroke drool. And part of the thing with this is, they said to run at 50 to 1, and I never run any small engine at 50 to 1 because Stills and Huskies that I bought new and ran them at 51, they all wore out really fast, and it's just not enough oil. So I run this at 32 to 1 and just don't run it that hard. But anyway, so that's the key to making these things work properly, is the right kind of air filter. So we'll show a picture of the bed here. Okay, well, I'm going to start with the status of our McCulloch Super Pro 80. Finally got most of the pieces for it, and so I wanted to go through the ignition system. Surprisingly, it has ignition points, and I've taken them out, and they're like new, but the face of the points was really discolored, and so it probably would have had spark, but not full amount there. So okay, well, we'll clean the points here with 800 grit sandpaper. You can see it bites on there, but I like to put a little extra pressure on it, pull it through, and that way it cleans them up really good. Okay, well, we got the points nice and clean. One thing a lot of people miss when doing points, the old standard would use a points file. Of course, that takes a plating off and then they wear out really quick, so that isn't a good idea. But once you've polished it, if there's any debris or residue from the sandpaper, you want to use a strip of untreated cardboard. You put it between the points and just pull it through. That'll make them totally clean. Just like that. Okay, well, I wanted to talk about points ignition briefly again. One thing a lot of people miss or make mistakes with is that the piece here rubs against the crank, which has got a cam built onto it. It has a flat spot, opens and closes the points, and it's got a little lip here, and it's important to put lubricant on there, but the type of lubricant you use is important because a lot of people would use automotive wheel bearing grease or something with moly in it, and what happens with that, if it touches the metal somewhere, it'll short it out. So they do make a special grease for it. There's some AC Delco. This is like a 200-year lifetime supply. I've been using this for, man, I don't know how many, 40 years or more. And Standard Motor Products sells their stuff. And the one I liked the best was made by Bosch. And each one has a different viscosity, and so the Bosch was the best by far, and it's kitty approved here. And this, the Lubriplate stuff, or Lubricam as they call it, it's really runny and I didn't like it at all. But anyway, we'll come over and show you a piece on the motor here that's important. Okay, well, the points sit right here. The rubbing block is right here, and you see this felt in here. That's where you put the lubricant on there. I always put a very small amount on the back side of that lip on the follower there, and then pull this out and wipe it down with the stuff. And you don't want to put too much on there because it can sling out, but just enough, because it has to be lubricated all the way around. And the kitty agrees, don't you, kitty? Okay, well, just another brief on the different types of points grease. Like I say, I don't like this because it's too runny. This stuff has a nice firm texture to it and it works really well. And this is the best yet. It's the tackiest, but it's crazy how things go. I just looked up to see how much a tube of this. It's about the same size as this one. It's $36 for a tube of this specialized grease. Kitty, bad kitty. So anyway, like I say, it's important to use the right stuff on these one-cylinder engines. Everything has to be perfect to run. So anyway, the other thing this saw is going to need pretty quick is, I got to finish the carburetor up. Okay, well, we got most of the parts for this. Still waiting for one part, but the other thing it's going to need is the fuel tank cleaned. It has corrosion in it. This is all one-piece cast, and so I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that and talk about it. And then I just recently derusted and cleaned my gas tank for the Brenner lawnmower, my old vintage mower there with the Clinton engine. So we'll talk about that here in just a sec. But well, the saw is apart. I'm going to use my ohm meter and test the coil, and it checks out perfect. So the points and condenser are new in it, and the coil's in good shape, so we're all set. So we got fuel work to do, clean the tank, and finish the carb, and we should be this one ready. So I will go out and show you my gas tank restoration tool. Well, here's our gas tank rotisserie. You see the Clinton tank is on here. It's filled up with gravel, and so see how that works, and then we'll come over and I'll show you the type of materials we use in the tank. Okay, well, every gas tank is going to be different, so we'll look inside and see what it is. And like on the Clinton tank, the bottom of it was clean, but on the top it had a lot of crust and rust and varnish both, and so I put about a quarter of a tank of just pea gravel like this in it. I'll run it for an hour or two, depending on what it looks like. This is what the pea gravel looks like after it comes out. All these rocks mashing around in there. Take the rust off and start building up on the actual rock here. And I've tried washing them, but it doesn't do any good. So what I do with stuff like this, right over here on our walkway, it's an area where it gets slick, and so I just take and add it to there. Use what you have. And the last time that I cleaned the tank with the second deal like that, I used some evaporust in it, and it got most of the rust out of it, but there was still a little bit in it. And the weird thing is that rust being broken off and getting embedded in those rocks, it also embedded it in the face of the tank, and of course there's no way to get in there and clean it. So I've got this stuff here, which is really fine. There's a little bit of sand in it too, and so that takes it right out, and then if I need anything else, I just wash it out with lacquer thinner and then put gas tank sealant. So anyway, this is a an old Fairbanks Morse hit and miss engine, and let's see what the gravel looks like coming out of it. Well, you can see it's not so rusty, but just debris mostly. It's broken up old varnish and stuff like that. So we'll boil that out with some of my good stuff and seal it too. Okay, for the last portion of the video, we're going to talk about progress on this. So, you have to go over the basics of these engines. Unfortunately, on this one, I think it's kept inside in really good shape because it's got lots of compression. So, I'm going to take off the valve cover here. Check the clearances on the rocker arms, and they're good. And of course, we've lubricated it. And I've taken the plug out and cleaned it. So anyway, what we're going to work on next is the gas tank here. And it doesn't seem to be rusted, but it has a lot of varnish in it. So we'll take that out, and you can see I've got the Magneto off here too. So I'll be right back. Okay, well, here's the Magneto for the International there, the McCormick Deering. And there's a little corrosion on the outside, but taking it apart, looks like new inside. And it's interesting what I found on this, because I took it completely apart, and a lot of times the points or condenser are bad on these. It had brand new ones in it. They had never been used because they couldn't figure out how to make it operate well. The interesting thing is here, this little contact point here contacts inside the cap right here, and it hooks to your spark plug wire. Well, this thing looked fine, but it was so corroded actually, because even when it's clean and the corrosion, they look identical. No electricity would go through it. So yeah, I completely cleaned it, lubed it, checked the magnet, it's really good, cleaned the contacts in here, and it works perfect. Now all I need is a gasket set for it to put it back on the motor. So we got compression, we got spark, and now all we need is fuel. So once I'm done doing the Clinton gas tank on the rotisserie there, I'll take the tank off that engine, fill it up with gravel, and beat all that crud out of it, wash it out, and put some gas tank sealant in it. And the last thing on the little International LA, this is your fuel pickup line here, and it has a check valve in here. So this goes down inside the tank, this fitting goes on the top here, and when the engine draws down and has vacuum, pulls fuel up, and then when the vacuum stops from the piston moving, this drops down and keeps it full of fuel, so that it'll run. And without the check valve, it'll just blow the fuel back into the tank. Stuff like this is kind of hard to clean, so had a lot of varnish and stuff on it here, and so I take a torch and burn that off, and then a can of B12 Chem Tool, Berryman's carburetor cleaner, is the only stuff I've used for years, and it's the best stuff out there. So I'll fill this up and nothing would come out, so I let it sit for about 3 days, drained it out, and then filled it back up again. Use a pipe cleaner and go right down inside there, just like that, clear down to the check valve, and then you can pull it back out. And you won't be able to see it on the camera, but there's just a little bit of debris right there, so still needs some more cleaning, but it is working. And I have this cup full of Berryman's there to leave it in there and just keep soaking it. It's little things like that that a lot of people miss on fixing these old engines. Just a check valve sticking, or the thing is, with a small gas engine of any type, you can only have one thing wrong and it won't run. The car, you can have bad spark plugs with a V8 or something. Carburetor works on 2 barrels instead of 4, and things like that. But one cylinder small engines, everything has to work or it won't run. And like this mag, you know, apparently somebody thought, well, it must be bad points in condenser and put this stuff in it. And they weren't set properly either. That's another thing that's critically important on this stuff. But anyway, you got to start with the basics and go through everything. And once you do, just like Mr. Obsolete's chainsaws and old motors and stuff, they run perfect. So vintage is best. So we'll see you in the next video. I bet you noticed this antique electric motor. Well, that's for a project coming up too. We'll keep you informed on that as it comes along.